Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to just real quick here go through an intro to Defense of the Ancients 2. I've been playing a lot of Dota 2 on stream. Maybe you've seen some Dota 2 videos. Maybe you've thought, hey, I would like to take a crack at this game. But unlike League of Legends, you can play all the heroes just out of the box for free in this free-to-play game. So where should you start? One thing that is described with the Dota roles, because people have different roles of what they do, the roles are numbered from 1 to 5, where 1 is the most selfish, item-dependent player on the team, and 5 is the least selfish and they're more spell-dependent player on the team. It's good to have a few characters of each role, so you feel like if I'm playing with my friends and they need me to do this role, I have a couple heroes that I can play. So we've got a lot of heroes here. It can be kind of intimidating to know what is good to play. One of the nice things that you can do is just pick heroes by low complexity. So this hero's ability mechanics are fairly straightforward to execute. This means they're not going to be skill shots. You're not going to have to micro a whole bunch of different pet units. It's fairly simple and straightforward to play. Let's just click this to start if you're brand new at Dota. So the thing that's nice about these characters is their abilities make sense. It doesn't really require technical knowledge. You just get to do stuff that's pretty fun and easy to do. So let me give you some examples of a position 1 character that you could start out with. So position 1 means if there's ever an opportunity to get farm, you should be the one to take that, and your team should know that. Luna is one of my favorite characters for position 1. She has a glaive bounce attack, kind of like a Mutalisk in StarCraft, so she can farm really fast just by one of her passive abilities. She doesn't need to get a cleave farm item. She has cleave out the box. Another example is Medusa. She has a split shot, which is kind of like getting a cleave for free out the box. Both of these characters scale well with items. Before they get items, they're kind of crappy. So they're carry type of characters. Juggernaut is another one. His first ability is a Blade Storm, which means he's spell immune. So he gets a spell immune item just as part of his kit. And then his ultimate is a really cool samurai attack thing where he strikes at someone and he's invulnerable during that time. And his second ability is a heal. His third ability is a crit. So Luna and Jug I would recommend. Medusa is kind of tricky because she's pretty slow and has no escapes. Another position 1 that I might recommend. Drow is actually pretty hard. She's very frail. She has no escapes and it's very hard to last hit. So I probably would not recommend this. Chaos Knight is a good one I would recommend. He has a single target stun, which you can't miss. He also has a crit that heals himself, and his ultimate, he makes a bunch of illusions and hits really hard. So if I had to pick some position 1s I would recommend to a brand new Dota player, I would say Luna's a good one, a Juggernaut's a good one, Chaos Knight's a good one, and then Ursa as well. He's just a bear that attacks really fast. I'd probably recommend those for position 1. Looking at some position 2 characters, that's the person who goes mid. The person who goes mid is in a 1v1 versus another person, and they're trying to get the most value out of the lane. It's a pretty high pressure role, but it's cool to have a couple mid heroes you can fall back on. Zeus, I think, is a really easy one because his stuff is all targeted. So you can't really miss your spells. He just zaps people with lightning that hurts a lot. So you can pressure people out of lane by using your zaps to get creep kills and also zaps on the enemy hero to just bully them out of lane. Another pretty simple and straightforward mid would be Viper. He puts a lot of pressure onto people just with his regular poison attacks, and he has long range. Zeus is a little bit shorter range. So Viper could be a really good mid hero you could try starting out. And then Death Prophet as well is a pretty straightforward one. She has a frontal wave attack, which is pretty easy to land. Her base stats are pretty good, and once you get her ultimate ability, you can just use her ultimate to push down a tower. And she's a really good character to give your team some map control, use her ultimate ability, get a bunch of towers once you get 6, and kind of roam between the lanes. Position 3 is the offlaner, and they're the person who usually wants to be the initiator on the team. Some people would call it the tank. So I recommend strength heroes usually for that. Tide Hunter. He's a big sea monster. He can walk into the fight, and his skin is so thick that When people attack him, it does almost nothing to him, so you can just kind of lumber into battle in front of your team, absorbing a bunch of attacks, and then boom, you have a massive AoE around you, which it's just centered on you, so it's pretty easy to land. It stuns everybody and deals a bunch of damage. Tidehunter is an awesome position 3, an offlaner. Pretty easy to land his abilities. There's also, he just throws water at people that deals damage. Another one that you could do for position 3 is Axe. Everyone loves having an Axe on the team because he wants to blink into fights by purchasing a blink dagger and then using his taunt ability on someone. That allows more squishy characters like Sniper and Drow to have someone else who wants to be a frontliner. A really common problem that Dota teams have is they have no frontline character and they're all squishy and don't really want to jump into the fight first. So it gets really awkward. Axe is a really good offlaner because he wants to jump in there. He wants to be in melee range. Another offlaner who's really good is Slardar. He counters invisibility heroes. So if you're in the position 3, you need an offlaner on the team, and they have, say, a Ricky Maru or a Slark or something, some kind of sleuthy invisible hero. Slardar is really good. His ultimate ability reveals those enemy heroes, and then he just has an AoE stun as his second ability. He has a bash as his third ability, and then he has a dash as his first ability to go fast. Another one that's a good offlaner would be Bristleback. You can just shoot spines, which deal more and more damage the more he's in the fight. He can also snot and slow enemy heroes. Pretty easy to play. Centaur Warrunner can boost his enemy's team speed. He has an AoE stun, and he deals a lot of damage, both return damage and with his physical attacks and abilities. So position 3, I'd probably recommend Tide, Axe, Slardar, and then Bristle and Centaur. Those are all pretty straightforward to play. And then position 4 is the person who lanes with the offlaner. You could go for a ranged character in this case. It's pretty comfortable to have one ranged and one melee in each lane. So a support character that's pretty good. I like to play Vengeful Spirit if I'm position 4. She has a stun, just a targeted stun, can't miss it. She also has a line minus armor damaging ability that's really easy to land. It's a pretty wide AoE. And then she has a swap ability where you can swap an enemy hero into a really dangerous situation so you can secure a kill for your team. And you can also swap to save one of your allies if they're in danger. So say you've got a Luna on your team and she's in a bad spot. You really want your position 1 to get powerful over the course of the game. You could swap yourself in, sacrifice yourself as a position 4, so your position 1 can grow up big and strong. Vengeful Spirit is really good for that. Some other position 4 characters that are strong. Lich brings really powerful spells to the table. As a position 4, you want to be helping with wards, with stacking. If there's ever some enemy team players who dive your team under one of your team's towers, it's usually your job as the position 4 to just watch the minimap, see if they're calling out for help, and you can TP in and help them. This allows your offlaner to just keep getting XP in the lane. Since you're the position 4, you're not taking the last hits in that lane. You're just letting the offlaner take them, and you're looking to help out your team secure kills. Warlock is another really good position 4 character. His ult is really strong. It's kind of like a Tidehunter ultimate, where it's a huge AoE. You get a huge golem or 2 golems if you get your scepter. Easy to land. He can also heal his allies. He can also deal a bunch of AoE damage. My brother plays Warlock. He's really good at this character. You can play him position 4 or position 5. And then Shadow Shaman is really good. He has his snake wards, which kind of like Death Prophet. You can push down a tower pretty much every time you get them. He also has 2 separate disables, which are fantastic. So Shadow Shaman can be played as a 4 or a 5. Now position 5 is the person who's babysitting the hard carry, who's the position 1. You can play Shadow Shaman again for this, where he's got his grab. He shackles someone and holds them in place. He can also hex them and turn them into a chicken. He's got his little zap for some extra damage. Another classic position 5 character is Crystal Maiden. She has an AoE Frosty Slow ability that does a lot of damage. She has a single target root, which you can't miss. You just target it on the enemy. They can't move and they take AoE over time. The third ability gives your team mana passively, which is great. So just everyone has more mana over the course of the game. And then the ultimate is a big snowy AoE around her that deals a lot of damage. Dazzle is another really good hard support, position 5, where he has a heal, he has a poison he can put on enemies, and he buffs his armor on his team. He also has Shallow Grave, which means the ally character cannot be killed while the Shallow Grave effect is on them, except for against a few certain spells that are like execute effects. But Dazzle is a very good character, and these position 5 characters, they don't really need items to be strong, which is why they yield the farm to their position 1 or any position that's lower than them in number. So as the pause 5, you sit in your lane, you pull the creeps into the lane to kind of make sure your creeps are closer to your tower, because your whole goal is to make their early game as safe as possible. So you want to pressure the enemy heroes with this position 5 role so that your pause 1 can get as many last hits as possible. Another good position 5 is Lion. He's kind of like Shadow Shaman, where he has a bunch of stun and disable, he has a mana steal, and then he has just a big nuke ultimate. So he brings a lot to the table without any items. You can play Lich as a position 5. Witch Doctor is another really good position 5. He has a stun that bounces from target to target. He has a Maledict, which means that people take a bunch of increased damage when they have that effect on them. But yeah, position 5, it's all about being really selfless, helping other people, and you usually want to buy a bunch of the Observer wards and Sentry wards with this role. You're willing to invest your money to help your team have map vision, like Overlord spread in StarCraft 2, and you want to make sure that they have as much space as possible by scaring off the enemy team. Because these characters that you can play for position 5 have a bunch of spell damage just out of the box. As soon as they hit level 3, they usually have one ability that hits pretty hard and they can start to pressure. They don't need the big farm items and the big damage items, and they also don't scale as well with those items over time. Characters like Juggernaut have a crit just as part of their abilities. So as he gets more damage items, he gets more value from his passive crit ability. Same thing with Drow. Drow's ultimate gives her a bunch of bonuses for her agility. So the more agility she gets, the more powerful she becomes, which is why the supporting roles will yield the farm to the carries. And the success of a team is based on the team using their half of the map and then gradually trying to take more and more of the map from the enemy team until you can eventually push their base. So this is just a quick breakdown of different characters that I would recommend. If you're brand new to the game, you don't have any Dota experience, and you want stuff that's going to be useful and fairly straightforward to execute, feel free to give me any feedback if there are some heroes that you think you would recommend to a new player. But I do like this complexity feature where you can just sort by stuff that's a little bit easier and more straightforward right away. It doesn't take crazy mechanics. It doesn't take crazy game knowledge. The abilities are pretty straightforward for these characters. So yeah, try it out and let me know what roles that you play in Dota. I like playing position 1 and 2, just to show you what I kind of default to for my play. If I'm playing hard carry, lately I really like playing Drow Ranger. Been having a sick win rate with this character. I finally figured out how to last hit and then also how to pressure my enemies. So I've been getting MVP over and over and over again just by getting really big farm and also staying way at the back of the team. So if my team is getting ready for a fight, I want to be way in the back where they all 4 go in first, and then I'm on the back and I have items that increase my range, and I'm shooting people at range and trying to stay as out of the fight as I possibly can. Another character that I really like for the aesthetic of it and the lore and just the gameplay is Anti-Mage. He's really fast. He's a counter to intellect heroes, as his name suggests. He can jump around the map really quickly. The only thing that makes this a tough character to pick sometimes is if they don't have any int heroes, he doesn't really get much value from his ultimate ability. And then if your team is behind, it can be pretty hard to find space to farm. But I really like playing him as a position 1. Spectre is another one of my favorite position 1s. She's more of like a tank position 1, where you want to get a lot of health items, where she's just really annoying to kill because her third ability reflects the damage she takes. So the more health you have, the more damage you reflect. Faceless Void is another one that I really like to play position 1. His ultimate ability is awesome. He freezes everyone in time, and he can bash the crap out of them. So those are basically my position 1 characters. Also play Luna sometimes. Position 2, which is mid, I like to play Shadow Fiend if I can. And if that's banned, I'll play Drow. If that's also banned, I'll play Queen of Pain. And then position 3, if I'm playing offlane, I like playing Slardar. He's really cool, brings a ton to the table as an offlaner. And if I don't get Slardar, probably Earthshaker. Where's this guy? Earthshaker, yeah. He's like a big Tauren guy. You want to get Blink on him. He's kind of like a little bit more complicated Tide Hunter. But his ultimate ability does a huge stun in AoE, and it does more damage based on the more targets are in that area. If I'm playing position 4, which is support that's laning with the offlaner, I like playing, like I said, Vengeful Spirit or Shadow Shaman. Really, I just want to pick some characters with some stuns. A lot of times you get on a Dota team and they have no stuns, and you just can't secure kills, and it's really obnoxious. So I try to think through the mindset of when I'm in position 1, I like when my team has some lockdown so that I can just show up and deal damage to things, and they take care of the setup of the fight. Venge can do that really well. Shadow Shaman can do that really well. Lion also is pretty cool. I don't really play him too much though. And then for position 5, I like Shadow Shaman again. Dazzle is pretty cool as well because he has the heal and the Shallow Grave. And I don't play position 5 too much, but yeah, those are basically the heroes that I default to. So I hope you found this breakdown useful. Let me know what heroes you play. I'll just show you my stats real fast so you can see my total games played. Most Shadow Fiend, then Anti-Mage, then Faceless Void, then Drow, then Luna, then Huskar, then Spectre, then Quap. So a lot of cores. I've got a decent bit of Dazzle and Earthshaker mixed in there. Dota 2 is a cool game. You might need to mute some players if people are being really toxic. You can communicate a lot of the things you need to in the game with pings of like, I'm going to go here or watch out for this. You don't necessarily need to use voice if you don't want to. But it's a beautiful game. It's in a really good spot, and I've been having a ton of fun playing it. And this is my breakdown for brand new players in Dota 2, some ideas of what heroes that you could play.